fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Oh. Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Welcome one and all to sunny Spain for round 2 of season 2 of OZICAR Formula Vee Series. We are here on the national layout of Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Fantastic circuit that just cuts out a bit of Sector 1 of the Grand Prix layout, but will be just fine for the Formula V cars that we are racing tonight across the usual Aussie car format of 2 races. We've got a 15-minute race coming up, followed by a 30-minute compulsory pit stop race. That is all before us. It will be very, very entertaining with the large grid of cars that we have with this still just 1 season old Formula V. Looks like 36 or 37 competitors for tonight, and they are just finishing qualifying, which in a grid this size is going to be super duper important. This is the circuit in question, and you'll see before you get down to the Grand Prix turn 1, there is a hairpin that shortcuts you back around till after what would be turn 4 or 5 on the Grand Prix layout, and then into the chicane, and then into the 90-degree corner, up the top of the hill, back down the hill towards the hairpin, and then through the final sector with the modern chicane. So very technical in the last sector of this layout, very fast for these Formula Vs that are slipstream intensive down the pit straight, and then some sweeping corners for the opening section of the lap here should keep things interesting and close. Give us some good racing. This is the championship after round 1. Ryan Howe leads on 98 points from Ryan Jones, just 1 point ahead of Simon Clayson, then Dennis Hancock, Kirk Broadhurst, Josh Burden, Sean Doyle, Stuart Crawford, Max Donnelly, and Nathan Verney. But round 1 was definitely a big hit of chaos. We'll see if a new form and a new order emerges here at round 2, and if our championship leaders can keep consistent, which is oh so important in this points format and in these large grids. So for race number 1 on pole, it's Joseph DeJesus the 4th, alongside Chaz Mostert. Cam Dance in 2nd, Michael Skurlock in Cam Dance in 3rd, Michael Skurlock in 4th there. Behind them, Chris Noble and Reese Gardner. Lee Partridge, Ryan Jones, Ryan Simpson, Kirk Broadhurst, Ryan Howe, and Daniel Hederscheid give us 3 Ryans out of 6 in that bracket of the drivers. Then we've got Sean McKenzie, Matthew Quintini, Dennis Hancock, Nathan Verney, Sean Doyle, and Aaron Freund. It's got Aaron Quintini for the double Quintini dose in the grid. Simon Clayson, driver high up in the championship, quite far down on the grid for race number 1. He'll be thankful for a second qualifying session before race number 2. Got Jeremy Bush, Ray Oliver, Theo Taylor, and Stuart Crawford as we get down to 24th. And further towards the rear of the grid is Ira Felberg, Callum Heinrich, Rick Berger, Max Donnelly, Philip Howe, Vic Bent Veltzen, Paul Ward, Matthew Harriet, Leon Williams, Stephen Black, Mick Taylor, Matthew Joy, and lucky last, Ashley Knowles. Here they are, all lined up on the grid. I'm David Haynes. I should be joined by Brad Wingard.
Hey David, how are you tonight? It's very much a pleasure to be here. I've watched the racing the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure this week is going to be just as exciting as the last, so I'm very excited to be here.
Delightful. 3 seconds left on the countdown before we get ready to go racing. It almost looks like some of the drivers towards the back of the grid get a little bit more of a downhill than our driver on pole position. Jesus drops the clutch, and there's always a little bit of difference in the getaway from these cars. Some drivers get away better than others. Lots of smoke in the air though as we make our way down towards the hairpin at turn 1. Tyres will be cold. Drivers are in a pack, and it's 3 wide as that looks like Chris Noble slotting the gap. Cam Dance trying to come around the outside of the opening hairpin, and Chaz Mostert is back into third, but still with our top 3 leaders as they go single file through this change of direction up the hill. Chaz Mostert now looking down the inside on Cam Dance. Not a lot of overlap here, but he's feeling brave for it in this short 15-minute race on lap number 1. And it might let your pole sitter just start to sneak away a little bit in the slipstreaming oh so intense already.
Yeah, it's not the Grand Prix layout. We've got a very short layout with 2 very long straights, and you might get a little bit of a gap as you can see contact at the head.
Reese Gardner and Cam Dance together, is it not? And Ryan Jones is now being hit by one of the locked-on iRacing cars. The right rear tyre hanging up in the air for the championship leader, and Ryan Jones is going nowhere in a hurry. Quite a lot of other cars back there with a bit of damage as well. I'm not sure who that could be there, but some of our big winners so far as we come towards the end of lap 1. Ryan Howe's come from outside the top 10 to gain a whole bunch of positions, and there's more carnage here. Daniel Hederscheid in the OZICAR Racing team liveries around. Dennis Hancock back there potentially because his team... No, this is Dennis Hancock. That could be Sean Doyle back there. Wow. So a lot of carnage and action already. It's Sean Doyle a little bit further back in the grid than we might have expected. Lap 1 completed. Chaz Mostert's going for the lead of the race around the outside. Not sure that's quite going to work for him. Michael Skurlock up into 3rd, gaining 1 position so far. And Lee Partridge from 7th is up in 4th. But our top 3 are almost breaking away as they've completed 1 of 10 laps.
1 lap down, and what a chaotic lap that was. People say that racing at Barcelona is boring. I just think they're bringing the wrong cars, because we're only, 3 kilometers into this race, and it's already giving us more crashes than I've seen in most Formula 1 races that are, 300 odd kilometers.
Darn it, hungry. So, for the lead, side by side, into the hairpin that's recently been reprofiled. We thank iRacing for scanning it to make sure that happened. And they are still going to remain side by side through this section where you normally wouldn't see any cars go side by side. And that might leave Chaz a little vulnerable around the outside there. And Michael Skurlock is watching on with great intrigue as he is super close to the race leaders here as well. Lee Partridge, then Chris Noble and Ryan Howe in the background. Ryan Howe, 2nd in the championship. Meanwhile, your leader has had to tow, so this could actually be a pretty good race championship-wise for Ryan Howe. We wait to see. And already they come through the final corner absolutely flat out in these cars. And Chaz Mostert looks to pull out of the slipstream. Michael Skurlock looks to go 1-2 leapfrog, 3 wide for the lead, and Skurlock is looking down the inside for the hairpin. Still a while before they get there. Track heads downhill as they get on the brakes, and then Chaz Mostert looks to get back on the racing line. From the lead, Joseph DeJesus ends up back in 3rd place. And then battle forming up here for 7th, Ryan Simpson, Reese Gardner, Cam Dance. We didn't quite catch the contact between Gardner and Dance or exactly what triggered it, but these cars are super loose off throttle, and it was cold tyres on the race start. Absolutely anything can happen. In fact, we even saw with warm tyres, Cam Dance spin out from the lead last season under absolutely no pressure at all.
Oh, there's so much going on, and only so many eyes to watch it with. These cars are just pretty much, they brake so late for turn 1, and it's flat out all the way until the hairpin at the bottom of the hill. And it makes so many passing opportunities, as we see again 2 wide into the 7th corner, sorry. And yeah, we've had another incident as well.
RF Elberg's had a bit of competition. His tyre is down, and I think his suspension is damaged as well. He was facing the wrong way at, I'm going to call it the infield hairpin. What's often one of the most decent overtaking opportunities. So, wide variety of liveries up the front here. We've got Chaz Mostert in the Doge V. We've got Michael Skurlock with the emoji helmet. And I don't know what's going on for Joseph DeJesus, but he could bring a bit of a novelty livery up to the front here as well if he wanted. Not quite look as fanciful as the drivers that are currently our top 2.
They might be top 2, but I don't think they'll be top 2 for long. It's just 3 wide into turn 1. That draft, like you said, down that back straight is just phenomenal. So you might get a bit of a lead, but by the time you're at the hairpin, then it just all disappears. And these guys are probably going to be 2 wide as we go back down towards the hairpin again. For, what is that, top 10 positions.
Broadhurst, who qualified 10th, running 10th. Behind him, Ray Oliver's come from 22nd on the grid up into 11th. And then Aaron Friend, Sean Kenzie. Simon Clayson, one of the championship hopefuls, is in this pack, currently in 14th. Jake Oliver looked at Kirk Broadhurst, decided against it. And there's almost maybe a little bit of contact in the exit. Is that going from a gear shift from second to third and they've tripped over each other at the exit?
I'm wondering if that was a one extra downshift that wasn't warranted, caused one person to spin, and then a Constantina effect caused the contact for the second. So hopefully we'll get a replay of that, but it looked very much like a reactionary incident more than anything else.
Good look on board with Michael Skurlock as he slipstreams off of Chaz Mostert to go for the lead. 4 gears in these cars. First, pretty useless. Second, maybe good for the really tight hairpins. Third and fourth gear is where they spend most of their time. So I wonder if some of these drivers are getting through that infield hairpin at the end of the back straight in second gear, and maybe that caused the problems. Some drivers in second, some in third. Take a second look at it. Maybe Chaz can answer our question, as there's a bit of cone abuse in the background there. One of the traffic cones gets a bit of help. This is what happened. Broadhurst. Broadhurst spins by himself, yeah. And then the driver in third doesn't have full vision of it and hits the driver in second, and 3 of them lose it out a little bit there. So it was a mistake from Broadhurst. This is the lead, and this is live. Skurlock back to the lead. Chaz Mostert going to take it right back again. Another close in our top 3. Nice and close. All 3 of them within about half a second.
Yeah, just Skurlock went a little bit too deep into the hairpin and just let Mostert come straight up, clean as you like. I gave plenty of room. Of course, these cars are nice and bathtub size, so plenty of room is the entire track. But I don't know if Chaz really wants to be here coming down the main straight, because these two are probably going to be right on top of him as we come into turn 1 again, as he pulls out of the draft to try and delay that process as much as he can.
Yeah, it's different. He's trying to play them off each other now, I think, is Chaz. Meanwhile, this is Jeremy Bush in the final sector, and you might have to find a reverse gear there, son, because there is 37 Skip Barbers out on track on the national layout. You're going to struggle to find a clean break. Here is Ryan Simpson, Cam Dance, and Reece Gardner. In that order, we've got Simpson, and then Dance, and then Gardner. I'm going to have to get used to seeing Reece in the teal. Cam Dance running the same Black Daniels livery as he had last season.
A very striking paint though, isn't it? It screams supercars. Of course, we had the old Jack Daniels car, and it's a little bit more simple, but it looks nice. It's nice and clean, and it's going like a bat out of hell, so obviously it works.
It looks great. It's just a shame I detest the product. This is a bit of nearly 3 wide. We've got one of the Guintinis here. It says A&M Racing on their cars, so you've got, I remember the names of the 2 Guintinis now, but it's a team clearly just derived of their first names. So maybe you can stick a GoPro on the back of the rear suspension and the rear. It almost looks like it holds the gearbox, that little almost rear subframe. Past the halfway point of the race, 4 laps to go, and I still say anyone's game here between DeJesus leading Mostert, leading Skurlock.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been racing for 11.5 minutes, like you said. We're on lap 7 now, so that draft train is unrelenting, and I don't think anyone is really going to, unless there's an incident, which we've seen a lot of incidents at the hairpin. I think unless one of those guys makes a mistake there, it's going to be a draft train right until the finish line, which is going to make it an interesting finish, because I'm all for a 3-wide finish in race 1 today.
Oh, we've had many a dead heat as well recently on Sim Speed. In these cars, in TCR cars, I think in Skip Barbers as well. There isn't a dead heat. We've had plenty of finishes, but between a couple thousandths of a second. That's what these cars are going to get. You can see they already start slipstreaming off each other when they leave that chicane. They're coming absolutely flat out through the final corner. By the time they get to the timing line about there, good run good close run off the chicane could slipstream you into the lead. There's time and space for moves like that to happen. Mostert's starting to get a bit more defensive now. He's still trying to hold the inside into the hairpin, and he's just gonna do it. Onto Jesus. Skurlock in third still for the moment. These three are blazing away from everyone else. Lee Partridge and Chris Noble in the background don't look like they're going to be able to catch the 3 seconds in the 3 laps to go. You can just still see some other cars in the background here. We've had a little bit of field spread for race number 1. Matthew Guintini's been tagged into turn 1 and he's around. We're almost trying to battle 3 wide over one of those positions there. Might have been really with. I think it was Stuart Crawford, Max Donnelly, and Dennis Hancock, so that would have been for 14th. Bit of a mistake from the pole sitter. Sees him back in a third and just holding on to the slipstream of Michael Skurlock here. To their lines with the giant yellow curbs. There's not really race car tunable damping to this suspension, so they don't want to hit those curbs in these little cars. I haven't seen drivers puncture tyres from hitting curbs too aggressively, but defending aggressively, Chaz Mostert is going to weave them one side to the other, as he crosses the line with 2 laps to go.
Yeah, in most cases, especially cars with a lot of downforce, you would say that mistake by Jesus later last lap would be pretty detrimental to his race. But it's honestly probably not a bad thing here because the draft train is so astronomically big down that main straight. Being P3 might not necessarily be a bad thing in the last 2 laps because a little bit of contact between the 2 leaders, it's thank you very much, parcel sent for Jesus in 3rd place. So not all bad, but also not quite like how he'd want to finish the race.
Lee Partridge and Chris Noble 4th and 5th, and Partridge is starting to make Noble worry a little bit. Noble, one of our race winners in season number 1, so I'm not sure he's going to be entirely flappable in this Formula V. We are shortly going to start the final lap of race number 1, the 15-minute sprint race. So all of these positions, the drivers are setting up for where they want to be, for how they're going to try to get in front on the final lap. Nowhere more important than here at the race lead. Chaz Mostert, middle of the road, middle centre, middle right, and Skurlock still following him, unsure when to pull out of the slipstream. And of course, Joseph Jesus has been brought back into this scrap. He's got a giant head of steam, but not quite close enough because he runs out of time and space before he can get down the inside at turn 1, and it's 3 Formula V's in 3 Formula V lengths for the lead of the race on the final lap. Supercars driver Chaz Mostert leading from some of the Australian sim racing community's best sim racers in Michael Skurlock and Joseph DeJesus. And then it's getting exciting here for 6th places. They've all closed up. Cam Dance, reigning defending champion, trying to defend from Ryan Howe, Ryan Simpson, and Reese Gardner. Look at this, 3 wide for the lead, and Joseph DeJesus nowhere to go as Skurlock tries to come around the outside of Chaz Mostert. If he can hold it there, that's the inside a bit further up at the right-hander, and that's going to be Skurlock's plan, is make Mostert go the long way. Ryan Howe has tangled with someone in the pack for 6th, but it's still side by side for the lead. Skurlock still with the inside, but around the outside goes Chaz Mostert to try to park it in the chicane. Is he going to get a great exit here? Maybe not. Skurlock bounces across the curb. DeJesus actually isn't in a bad position to try to slipstream off one of them. Is Mostert going to be able to hold on to it to the line? Can Skurlock pull out in time to try to take the win away? I don't think he's been able to. Chaz Mostert is the winner, but again, going to have to bring out the camera for a 3-wide finish for race number 1 at Barcelona.
Yeah, multiple 2-wide, 3-wide finishes. Racing isn't over yet as we look back to the chicane. Crash on the farm. Someone out in the gravel.
Aaron Fryn's having a problem and losing a couple positions as the checkered flag approaches and drivers sweep around him. Another 2 wide there. How do you like it? One of the Guintinis, and that's one way to celebrate. That Formula V is going to need a bit of repairing for Philip Howe before race 2. No, he hasn't made it over the barrier there. So the driver's still coming to the checkered flag podium for race number 1 is going to be Chaz Mostert from Michael Skurlock from Joseph Jesus, but only a tenth of a second to cover all 3 of them there. And Noble got the better of Partridge for 4th. So let's look at those results now. Mostert, 0.08 of a second ahead of Michael Skurlock. Joseph DeJesus just behind that. Chris Noble and Lee Partridge mighty close as well for 4th and 5th. Then Cam Dance held on to 6th from Ryan Simpson and Reese Gardner. Ryan Howe lost out on the final lap in that battle somehow. Sean McKenzie held on for 10th from Simon Clayson, Dennis Hancock, Max Donnelly, Kirk Broadhurst, Nathan Verney, Daniel Hederstride, Ray Oliver, Rick Berger, Philip Howe, and the top 20 completed by Matthew Quintini.
21st is Aaron Guintini, 22nd Matthew Harriott, Aaron Freen 23rd, Vic Bentvelen in 24th, Stephen Black, Stuart Crawford, Jeremy Bush, Mick Taylor, Callum Heinrich, and Liam Williams rounding out the top 30. Ashley Knowles in 31st, and Matthew Joy, the last car to finish on the lead lap. Sean Doyle, Ira Felberg, Paul Ward, Theo Taylor, and Ryan Jones, all cars finishing a lap down or DNFing from race 1.
And what a race 1 it was. We're going to check on this. Is this Chaz Mostert's first victory in OZICAR? Certainly, he missed a couple of races last season. I have a feeling like it might be his first win in OZICAR as well. So, with all the festivities done from race 1, we're going to take a break here on SimSpeed TV. And when we come back and find out, can Chaz Mostert go 2 from 2 and clean sweep circuit to Barcelona? Or will championship leader Ryan Jones fight back? Or will reigning champion Cam Dance be able to pull something out of the bag in the 30-minute compulsory pit stop race? It is going to get exciting for race number 2 at Barcelona. The stage is set. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, more OZICAR Formula V action.
Yeah, so we're using the VRS Direct Force Pro this year. We have a wheel adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year, but the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker, especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs, any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. It feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in a car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Six very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome back to Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya for OZICAR Formula Vee. OZICAR Formula Vee brought to you by Simfinity, Locked On iRacing podcast, Prestige Trophy Badge and Engraving, 24/7 race control. I was listening to a little bit of Locked On iRacing podcast the other day. They were talking about their favourite guests that they sort of had on their wish list. Emily Jones is one of them. They've already had her on the podcast. Bet they'd love to get Chaz Mostert. We'll see if that happens for them. And then maybe they'd go up to being like the number 3 lifestyle podcast in Belgium on the iTunes charts. But all that aside, the compulsory pit stop race is coming up. But before that happens, it's one lap qualifying to set the grid for that race. I'm David Haynes, joined by Bradley Wingard. Brad, it really puts the pressure on them in qualifying to have just the one qualifying lap. And we often see quite a few drivers and big name drivers and championship contenders sometimes make a mistake and fail to set a lap.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You think, oh, it's only one lap. Like, that's fine. It's not a 24-hour race or whatever, but it's one absolute balls to the wall lap. And track limits here, especially at the top of the hill, if you run that little bit right, that's race over, you're starting last. So qualifying is relatively important, especially with you don't want to be caught up in any incidents caused by the massive draft trains that we have here. So that one lap is absolutely critical to maximize the race today.
Well, there's the information that you need about race number 2, 30 minutes with a compulsory pit stop tyre change, and the pit window ends before the start of the last lap. So we still might see quite a fair chunk of strategy here. And again, that's what I love about having these large grids for these races, is if there was 10 cars, you'd work out the mathematically optimal time to take the tyre change and you do it then. But with the traffic and the unpredictability of, gaps opening up in the traffic for your pit stop, it really does put more pressure on the drivers and gives us a little bit more variance and gamble on the strategy.
Yeah, it's not just that either. It's I'm very curious to see if we're going to have like a Daytona 500 style of pit strategy where drivers try and come in together to the draft train, because we saw how the top 3 pulled away last race. Yeah, they had a bit of a pace advantage over the rest of the field, but they also maximised their draft train. So I'm wondering if we'll see groups of people coming together to try and use that draft train to their advantage to leapfrog other draft training groups.
This will be the outlap for some of our drivers, and we saw some work harder than others to try to warm up the tyres on the outlap to give them the best performance come their flying lap. Sean Doyle, well, once you've come out of that chicane, you're basically on your qualifying lap because you've got to keep the throttle pin all the way through the final corner. We're going to see Sean start his qualifying lap. One shot, one opportunity. The timer starts running and he's got to make the most of it. Again, can't make a mistake, can't loop the car in that hairpin. He's got to manage risk versus reward, as they love to say on television.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And with only 3 proper braking areas for this track, you got to try and carry as much speed into that braking zone and through the corner as you can, because of how momentum based these cars are. So like you said, coming out of that final chicane, that's the start of the lap. Coming out of turn 1, you're flat right up until this point here, and you got to maximize it through here, because even on the run down the hill into the chicane. It's only really a slight tap of the brakes, so exiting that hairpin is probably more important than a lot of other cars at racing.
Already a minute into his lap, and a couple more decisions still to be made for Sean Doyle that could make or break this qualifying effort. Close to the yellow curbs, but not going to get too much Spanish sausage, and it's just flat out across the curb of the apex of the final corner. Breezes it out wide, but I think he could have held it tighter if he needed to. Now he runs towards the timing line, and it says 127.6. So we're going to start to see more times come in. Here's Ryan Simpson. Here is Cam Dance, and we get a picture of what qualifying looks like. Simpson with the fastest time at the moment. Expect some of these drivers running a bit later, though, to begin to eclipse it. 15 times on the board from 37 drivers so far. Has Cam Dance got for us? Race 1 pole sitter with a 126.8, but Cam Dance with a 126.6 is going to go ahead of Joseph DeJesus, and here's Chaz Mostert, the race 1 winner. Still early on his lap. Wow, such car, many race.
Chaz is a very prolific character, so he's a little bit experienced. I think he's one of the more experienced drivers on the grid today. I say with much sarcasm. So I'm expecting him to give Dance a run for his money. A 26.6 is 2/10 clear of Jesus in second at the moment. So a mid-26 will obviously be pole. So as we head towards the downhill section of the chicane, one braking corner to go, a little bit of curb on the inside, not much, or a lot on exit. That's probably going to be a bit detrimental for the run down to the finish line. Cross the line for 126.9, so not quite where I'm sure he was aiming to finish that run, but no doubt that contact with the sausage curb on exit of the chicane really hampered his speed down the front straight.
Yeah, surely. He's had a couple of races in OZICAR Formula Vee before, though, so he's gotten accustomed to the strategy with the pit stops, etc., everything that he's going to need to move forward from that position. But it is Cam Dance on the pole from Joseph DeJesus in second. Reese Gardner, the Southpaw racer, up into third. Michael Skurlock, Chaz Mostert, and Chris Noble is the top 6. Then it's some of the familiar faces that performed in race 1. Ryan Simpson, Lee Partridge, Ryan Howe, Sean Doyle, Kirk Broadhurst, and Aaron Guintini for the top 12.
13th place is situated by Dennis Hancock, Theo Taylor 14th, Sean McKenzie 15th, Aaron Fiend 16th, Jeremy Bush, Simon Clayson, Matthew Guintini, Matthew Harriet, Ashley Knowles, round out 21, Ira Felberg 22, Max Donnelly, Ray Oliver, Simon Black, Mick Taylor, Leon Williams, Matthew Joy, and Daniel Heddershield round out 29 drivers, with Ryan Jones finishing in P30.
Yeah, we're into some of the drivers at the back here who don't have a qualifying time. Daniel Hedderscheid and Ryan Jones amongst them, but also Nathan Verney, Stuart Crawford, Rick Berger, Vic Bentfeldsen, Philip Howe, Callum Heinrich, and Paul Ward. So those first couple drivers without a qualifying time really missing out, starting deep in this gigantic field. And Daniel Hedderscheid, Ryan Jones, Nathan Verney, Stuart Crawford are really going to struggle. Meanwhile, Cam Dance is where you want to be. He's on the grippy side of the track, and he's a grid spot ahead of everyone else. Jesus, etc. there. 20 laps, twice as long for race number 2. And they are a couple of seconds away from getting ready. Lights start going on now. Drivers start revving. Smoke starts pouring out of the back of these good old Formula V's, and then they drop the clutch and get away. Not bad for Dance. Lee Partridge has had a pretty good one as well, grabbing a spot or so already. Chaz Mostert, I think, is already trying to get ahead of Michael Skurlock as well. No problems for Cam Dance in the lead, but it is 2 wide, 3 wide further back in the pack. coming in on the brakes, on cold tyres, into turn 1. 10 clean so far. Bit of 4 wide back there as well with the OZICAR Racing Team drivers. As they navigate the opening hairpin. Now uphill, and I don't even want to estimate how little horsepower these cars have, but they don't like going uphill, and that means the slipstream gets more important. They all close up. That's a good look at that sort of rear suspension gearbox carrier thing I was talking about. These little bathtubs. Dance is leading. Is Mostert trying to take a spot away from Reece Gardner? So no problems on the cold tyres for Chaz Mostert as he's grabbed 2 positions so far. He's looking pretty confident while other drivers might be still trying to feel out the car and get that temperature. And again, a big incident at the hairpin. Sean McKenzie facing the wrong way, a couple drivers on the tow hook, and that's almost to be expected for these cars there now.
We nearly had a clean lap 1. Unfortunately, Aaron Freund has pulled it in. He's hopefully not race done, but we have more contact at the chicane as well. I was scattering left, right, and centre. Daniel Hederschi is caught up in that as well after gaining quite a few positions on that lead lap. So
we've got a couple pit stoppers as well, and by a couple, I think it's literally just Sean Doyle. So, no, Philip Howard, Jeremy Bushwick, Berger, Sean McKenzie in as well. I just needed to wait a second for it to update. Chaz Mostert in 1 lap's come from 5th into the lead of the race, so he's not hanging about as he got past Joseph Jesus and Cam Dance kind of down towards turn 1, but there's still 6 cars in this lead pack, as you see. Jesus right in close, looking down the inside again. Cam Dance, Reece Gardner in the teal, then Lee Partridge, Michael Skell. Oh, Partridge and Gardner, almost a little bit of contact there. It looks like there is damage for Reece Gardner. 3 wide for 3rd, but I still feel like Gardner must be nursing a bit of damage. It didn't look all right. He's trying to get going again in the blue Crayola. I realise what it is now. But no, that's looking like he's pulling out of the way.
I was about to say, it doesn't look too bad. Like, he's still pointing in the right direction. He's still got some pace, and then, yeah, we see that. And unfortunately, there's no eraser on the back of that Crayola, because I'm sure he'd like to wipe that incident clean from his memory. But unfortunate happenings. It wasn't his fault. It was very unfortunate, is an understatement. But we've seen it, well, 4 or 5 times now. That hairpin is catching a lot of people out, and hopefully people are starting to not so much learn, but yeah, as we see, it's big neck code too, compress that left rear suspension, and they might not be fragile, like super fragile race cars, but that road suspension is not going to be in top shape after that.
Of course, Reece Gardner a long way away from the iRacing Sydney servers in Perth. Oh, okay. Why'd you make that camera look like Michael Skurlock had tapped his rear and spun around? Come on. So, the top 2 are getting away, but everyone from 3rd on back has actually closed up after that little incident in the hairpin. It's trying to get away in 3rd. We've got Skurlock and Partridge and Howe and Simpson and Noble all fighting, and this looks like Ryan Jones trying to make a bit of a charge back through the field, is it? He's up into 11th. We've had a couple of drivers pitted, but he hasn't been caught up in any of the lap 1 shenanigans, and lap by lap he's been trying to pick off more drivers as well. Reece Gardner has made his pit stop and come back out 2nd of the drivers who've already cleared their compulsory pit stop, and more drivers might be thinking about it now, but after about lap 5, if they haven't taken it, they'll be trying to go as long as they can into the race before they stop. This is the lead.
That is the lead. I apologise. I'm tongue-tying myself and I cut you off. The Jesus back in 2nd. Sorry. 3 wide into the hairpin nearly for the team positions back there. Still clean as they head up the hill. Very close battle for pretty much the final step on the podium is Cam Dance, Lee Partridge, Ryan Howe, Michael Skurlock. All very close together still, so pace advantage doesn't mean a massive amount as we go to VRS replay, David.
Came back from one. Theo Taylor jumped across one of the yellow curbs at the exit of the final corner, beached himself and spun himself towards the wall is what it looked like to me. So just got to show, you've got to pay some respect to the yellow curbs in the final sector. They're put there to try to force you onto the track, and if you're going off the track, they won't help you then. So Crawford was catching a little bit of one as well. He's up behind Simon Clayson, Max Donnelly and Ray Oliver, and none of them are going for that pit entry right there. Crawford trying to pick a line. You can pick any line you want in the final corner, it seems. He's going to follow in behind one, slipstream off the other. We're going to go 3 wide up front here, 3 wide towards turn 1. It's going to be a narrow entry, but track position commits one driver to back out of it. Nice big sim speed sticker on the back there, probably helping him on.
All the stickers give all the extra horsepower to make that move done. Even though he was on the narrow line there, how late you can break into turn 1 in these cars, the narrow line doesn't affect you as much as it might in other like touring cars or even a Mazda MX-5. So getting that job done nice and cleanly, as you see contact in the hairpin. Who was that?
Lee Partridge is going around, back on the surface and going, but that was the battle pack over 4th place. As they came to the infield hairpin, I'd get my grandstand seats for that corner if OZICAR ever comes back here. And this is how, well, no, sorry, this is Ryan Simpson. Ryan Howe's a different driver in this pack, but this is how he ended up facing the wrong way, caught too much of the curb on the apex, and I don't think there was even any contact there for the Partridge. Up front, 3 drivers battling for the lead now because Cam Dance has managed to catch them. So Mostert, Jesus, and Cam Dance together here. He's managed to bridge that gap, and the top 2 haven't worked together well enough to get away. Next pack has got all those Alpha Racing team drivers in it of Howe and Noble. Anytime I say 2 names together, it kind of sounds like they should be explorers or something. Howe and Noble, the first men to walk backwards to the South Pole.
Oh, because of Noble, I was thinking Barnes and Noble, but yeah, that works even better. 3 wide into the hairpin. Again, I don't think I'm ever going to get bored of saying that sentence, but looking, where are we? At Cameron Dance. At the,
Bit of traffic for the lead pack, isn't it?
yeah, that's actually come up quite quickly, which I guess as that traffic runs wide. But will happen here with the speed of the cars with a very long pit lane. Lap traffic is, well, as we can very clearly see, inevitable. But of course those cars will get passed again when our leaders pit. But yeah, cause a little bit of a kerfuffle for the lead pack going through that final sector, but everyone got through cleanly. Just a little sandcastle building for Joy in the background.
Yep, from Gympie, Queensland, or as Google Maps navigation likes to pronounce it, Jim Pie, which are 2 kind of conflicting ideas, but nonetheless, Jesus, Mostert and Dance still all dodging the pit lane. A top 19 haven't pitted. Everyone below that appears to have cleared their compulsory stops. Some of them a little longer on the lane as well with damage, but at least all of them have cleared their compulsory stops. RF Feldberg's going to be in the lane as well, but the highest placed drivers to have made their stops are Aaron Guintini, Lee Partridge, and Matthew Guintini. So the amazing Guintini brothers having made their pit stops. But this is Lee Partridge, who decided, enough of this spinning around and in the traffic nonsense, I'm going to make my pit stop. He's come back out and is now going to take that mantle away from the A in A&M Racing.
Apologies, I just had a bit of a mental breakdown. I was trying to find where Chaz Mostert was, and I couldn't see him on my relative. Turns out I hadn't scrolled up by him. But as we speak of him, here he is, up 4 positions from the start, still holding that lead. None of them dive into the pits again, so clearly going for that long game, and I don't blame them. They're 5.5 seconds clear of 4th place, so slow through the hairpin. It's Warden Williams.
First men to hang glide from the Himalayas.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Nothing of any importance. Ray Oliver's going for the pit lane. Unusual line into the chicane there from Williams, I think it was. And he's going for the pit lane as well. So approaching half distance in this race, and it's starting to become a popular thing to do. 3 cars for the top 3, 4 cars for 4th place. As the teammates Howe and Noble try to fend off Simpson and Skurlock. Now that I've said it, it is in my head. I just can't wrangle out. But this almost looks like a defensive formation here as Noble kind of plays the tail gunner a little bit. Oh, and then there's a problem on the exit for Noble, I think it was. That sees Howe go through, it sees Skurlock go through, and Simpson is on the attack as well.
Thankfully, no contact, a lot of checking up, but yeah, the who was that for? Simpson and Noble in their Flying V and the Formula V are down that back straight. I was waiting for you to finish your sentence so I could make that joke. We're going straight for the pits, both of them. So maybe that's a little bit of that NASCAR Super Speedway drafting pit strategy with the 2 of them pitting together. So we'll see how that pans out later in the race, but no contact through that final sector, which was quite lucky given how much they all checked up. But they are now our highest pitted drivers, and Leon Williams down in 18th place, I believe, is the highest driver on track to have pitted.
Lee Partridge, but I think the drivers who just pitted, Noble and Howe, could still come out in front of him, the Alpha Racing team teammates. Aaron Quintini's done a good job since Lee Partridge got past him to just ride along with him as well. Good look at the nose, and I imagine that is a tribute of some form on the nose for A&M Racing. So have Noble and Howe come out in front? They have. So those 2 are in front of Partridge and Quintini, which is what I would have expected. The other Quintini's just in the background now as well. Is he going to catch them? You're going to see the 2 together? Potentially. This is Simpson and Skurlock then. Are they going to pit? Maybe not just yet. A top 3 still not pitting either, but some of the drivers behind them are starting to go for the lane.
Yes, as you ask, they answer. Skurlock and Simpson both in the lane, line astern. Chris Noble, who pitted last lap, is coming into the chicane at the moment. So we'll see how they fare pit entry. And of course, Ryan Howe is right behind him. So, although quite a bit further behind, but that could have been from that mistake before they pitted that hit pin. So Skurlock is still in the lane, so they get past quite comfortably. Yes. Maybe not quite comfortable. My relative is lying to me. Comfortably enough.
My relatives are lying to me. It's because my uncle said he'd come to my 10th birthday. But that is entirely aside. Chris Noble has come out with Ryan Simpson in between him and his teammate here. So now just the top 7 who haven't pitted. Here's our top 3, and they are still not thinking about the pit lane, despite starting to catch a little bit of lap traffic. Like you said, easy to happen around here. It's a minute 26 lap. That's some off-roading in the background there. Minute 26 lap, and the pit delta is above 30 seconds. So if you have a spin and then decide to pit, you could quite quickly find yourself almost going a lap down until these leaders clear their pit stops. See the downshifts and the oil. How much do these cars start with, and how much do they finish the race with? That's something that keeps me up at night. Reese Gardner, more excursions in the Crayola car. The world is his canvas, and he'd rather it wasn't.
I wonder if Reese is feeling a bit blue in that car right now. He's not had the most successful race. Oh yeah, spin at the hairpin. getting one of those extra sketches with the circles out and making some lovely blue circles for us all, but not quite how he was hoping to spend his Wednesday night in virtual Barcelona. But nonetheless, on the draft of Ashley Knowles. My timing's messing up again. I apologize.
Don't worry about it then. He's in 19th, which means he's trying to catch Ray Oliver, Simon Clayson and Stuart Crawford, but might be going to get caught by Jeremy Bush. Matthew Harriet behind him. Joseph DeJesus has gone for the pit lane, which leaves just Chaz Mostert and Cam Dance out front. Drivers who duked it out for the win in Sukuba last season. Is this going to be a killer strategy from Joseph DeJesus? Or is it going to be Dance and Mostert?
Oh, it could be, yeah. This could be a massively big brain strategy. That was poorly worded as he comes out the pits now, but he is coming out into a lot of traffic, so I'm not quite sure. Actually, he's got a bit of a gap behind him. He's got 3.5 seconds in front of him, so he could use that to his advantage, but also Chaz and Cam can draft off each other to try and make up any time lost. So lap times for the three of them are very, very similar. So I guess it's going to come down to traffic and draft, but as the top two come into the chicane now, we'll keep a close eye on them to see if they do hit to try and cover the Jesus, and they do not. So
You see a lot of clear track, and they still see themselves putting down good lap times, so they aren't going to pit yet. Fuel shouldn't be a concern here. They should have the fuel to get all the way to the end if they want. It's all about that compulsory 2-tyre change, compulsory pit stop. And this might help them in their battle against Joseph DeJesus in that very, very clean slipstream slingshot pass. Costs them no time. In fact, will definitely gain them. Dance goes in front. They do the same thing the next lap. That's probably the quickest way around here, is if you can work together with someone. Tough to make that happen when you're 3 or 4 drivers in a pack. When there's just the 2 of you, far easier to come to a trade agreement.
yeah, that's exactly right. Joseph DeJesus is 33.1 seconds behind the lead pack when he started his 13th lap. So I don't know if that's going to be enough of a buffer, or if he has had a stroke of genius to pit a couple laps earlier. But like you said, that draft time between the 2 of them is working wonders for them regardless. So because there's no aero on this car, so they don't have to worry about aero rush. It's just that massive draft down the straight to as Cam pulls in. Never mind.
Well, okay. Dance going for the pit stop. Leaves Chaz Mostert out on track to start lap number 14. Interesting. So we have to look towards where Dance and DeJesus are going to be, and if that is going to tell us something about where Chaz Mostert could be if he's able to execute a clean pit stop. Car is up on the jacks for Dance.
DeJesus is coming onto the main straight now.
Decent pit stop time for Dance as well, but he is going to come out of the lane with the cold tyres, and that'll give a couple critical laps where DeJesus can strike if he needs to. He is going to be a couple seconds behind Dance, who's making his way through turn 1 right now. Well, that's not Dance. Dance is the next car up the road. So almost 4 seconds gained with this whole pit stop nonsense for Dance. I don't know how much that might evaporate now that he's got the cold tyres and DeJesus has warmed them up a little bit, but whether it was attacking the pit entry, attacking the pit exit, holding the pit lane speed down the lane, but Dance has managed to earn himself a good bit of time, and that really puts the pressure on Chaz Mostert as well. Jeremy Bush in a little hot, loops it around, and it's off camber on the way in there as well, which, if you're struggling a little bit, is just going to punish you even further.
As we see Chaz Mostert in the lane, these are live pictures now. So Dance is coming out of the chicane now. So we saw Dance get that buffer by staying out, but how much of that was down to the drivetrain with Mostert? Still stationary.
Dance had 16.8 seconds stationary, now 18.5 for Chaz Mostert. He's moving in the pit lane, but he's not out the pit exit yet. He's back there. So this is going to be Dance into the lead of the cars that have pitted. Only 2 cars haven't cleared their pit stop yet, Jones and Verney. In fact, Dance is almost coming to catch Verney regardless anyway. So Ryan Jones will be hoping that he's putting in the laps of his life to try to salvage some points in race number 2 today, to try to keep his championship alive, because, well, so far the other drivers have picked up more points than him today. Chaz Mostert with the points from race number 1. Dance, Mostert, Jesus, Noble, Howe, Simpson all looking for points in race number 2. And it's a 2v1 here in this battle here. Alpha Racing teammates just trying to bully out Ryan Simpson so that they can hold on to what they're hoping is going to shake out as 4th and 5th places.
Yeah, it's very close coming up through turn 7 towards the chicane. Simpson just sitting patiently. He knows he has that big draft coming down the straightaway, so don't have to go for any high risk moves into the chicane. There is the room for it, but it only compromises your run. That's not quite what we need, but having the Noble and Howe line astern makes their job a little bit easier, but still not quite enough to overcompensate the draft coming into turn 1. As Ryan Jones is on his way out of pit lane.
Jones rejoining into 9th behind Michael Skurlock, just in front of Lee Partridge. Well, Partridge might get him too. Partridge is going to swoop around the outside of a very slippery looking Ryan Jones. I'm going to say greasy looking, but more slippery on the cold tyres.
The slow car on the hairpin up ahead in front of Dance. That is... What was that? Oh, Nathan Verney, who is yet to pit, getting black past Steve Black, who is a lap down at this point. Cam Dance getting through as well. I'm wondering if Dance will hope that Verney stays out just for one more lap, because Mostert is 2.2 seconds ahead, and he does. So getting that bit of a draft down the straight will definitely help Dance retain or get a bit of an edge onto that first place, which should tick over now. Well, it will at the end of next lap if Cameron stays in front, but he is on the inside heading into turn 1, so...
Yeah, 2 cars there. Verney was putting the lap on someone. Dance is trying to put the position on Verney, who hasn't stopped yet. So Dance does come through into the lead. Put a couple cars between himself and Chaz Mostert. Mostert now only 1.9 seconds back off him though, and Ryan Simpson's managed to outfox the both of them to get up into 5th. Soon that'll be 4th when Nathan Verney makes his pit stop, or if they catch and pass him before he makes his pit stop, like Cam Dance has done, and like Chaz Mostert and Joseph Jesus are probably going to have to do, even if Verney pits at the end of this lap, which he might not, because I think he's still got another lap or so with the compulsory pit stop window being open. Just can't pit coming to the checkered flag, best I understand it. Howe goes through, opens the door. Noble says, I want some of that too, but Howe's run a little wide across the wrong side of the curb. Not the greatest way to carry speed. We've seen that these cars bottom out on those curbs oh so easily, and then with the suspension, you don't get the grip, so you don't get the drive off the corner if you go across those curbs. Quintini and Partridge have been together ever since Lee Partridge made his pit stop. So it is Aaron Quintini in front of Lee Partridge, and Matthew Quintini hasn't been able to catch them to make Quintini, Sandwich out of Lee Partridge. Still waiting on Nathan Verney to pit, but everyone else has cleared their compulsory pit stop. Times you see either on the side or across the top of the broadcast are accurate. Ryan Jones, and he's now part of this battle as well. After being a little quiet through the pit stops in the middle of the race, all the battles start to form up again, and the Formula V's magnetize themselves together with their powerful slipstream.
Yeah, it's you can't really count your chickens until they hatch through that pit stop cycle, because Ryan carries a lot of speed through the bottom of the hill. It's going to compensate his run down into the hairpin, but he is up 21 positions from the start, so that's not a bad effort at all. That will be 22 once Verney pits, depending on this battle, of course. But taking to the inside of the chicane, the hairpin, sorry, what am I doing? Brakes earlier, all lap traffic, very close call there. But all get through nice and cleanly, but maybe needing a new change of underwear after that. I know I sure would, but Ryan on the outside. Going around the outside into... No, he's not. He takes the racing line, so never mind all that. But it's not over yet. We still have 2 laps of racing at the end of this lap. He runs wide onto the main straight. That is not the run that Ryan would have wanted onto that straight there.
Verney zipping through the 80km/h pit lane speed limit we got here means he is going to make his pit stop, and therefore 2 laps to go. Dance leads 2.5 seconds clear of Mostert, another 2.5 seconds clear of Joseph DeJesus, and the biggest battle is between Ryan Howe, Ryan Simpson and Chris Noble, but also here Ryan Jones, Aaron Quintini and Lee Partridge. Jones, the points leader coming into this round after making good points at the Red Bull Ring, but troubles in race 1, no qualifying for race 2. He's got to make good of everything he can in this race 2 and cannot afford to crash out of this one, but he's in a tough spot between Quintini and Partridge. That car sticking behind them as well. He's looking for the inside at the hairpin on Quintini. Oh, but there's problems between the Alpha Racing teammates and Ryan Simpson, so Ryan Howe loses out. That gives Ryan Jones a free position as well. So Simpson now up in 4th, Noble back in 5th, and our teammate has lost out a big chunk of positions as this train has come through. We're going to start the final lap. No one is going to challenge Cam Dance except for himself and his own mistakes, potentially. He needs a clean final lap and he can take away a win in Season 2. Might be the first win this season for the defending champ as well, to try to right his ship. Ryan Jones, though, he knows he's got a mammoth task to try to defend from 2 hungry drivers. That's 1, 2, 3 weaves. How many more? And we can make a cross-stitch out of this, but they're coming for him. Jones is going to hold all the way to the inside. Quintini's got speed. Partridge, huge speed around the outside as well. 3 wide. They've got to go for it on the final lap. Quintini's super brave, but still Ryan Jones trying to hold the inside, the short run. But I think Quintini's held enough speed around the outside. Lee Partridge has been muscled out. So now it's Aaron Quintini up into 7th. Oh, you can't make Ryan Jones lift out of this one, though. He's going to stick down the inside. Right-hander coming up for them a little bit further up the road. Ryan Simpson, Chris Noble, and Michael Skurlock has caught them as well. Simpson down the inside, trying to hold on to that one. And I think as he gets cleanly off the corner, he might, but then he jumps over the curb. Quintini down the inside of Ryan Jones. Ryan Simpson has made contact, and they're around. That pack's going to catch him here. Chris Noble's back on the track. Ryan Jones picks up a spot from the lead. Partridge, Ryan Howe through as well. Cam Dance has 1 sector to go to hold on to the lead. Chaz Mostert to hold on to a podium, and Joseph DeJesus to be the round winner if he can. Here comes Cam Dance. He's going to take the feature race win and plenty of points to go with it. Chaz Mostert caught him in the final stint, but couldn't close the gap. And it is carnage behind us. Jesus takes the podium. Quintini's around. Skurlock's around.
Ryan,
but the Quintini's reunited, but not in the circumstances they would have wanted. Carnage through the final sector for the remaining positions. Quintini and Quintini, add them together, that's 555. Where are they going to get scored? Going to need a replay, I think, of some of those final corners. No problems for Cam Dance, though, as his strategy plays him to perfection to take the win. So where does it all start? Well, Jones and Quintini and Partridge and the recovering Ryan Howe. Ash Knowles is a lap down in front of them. Lee Partridge yeets across the curb. Ryan Jones has a misshift. Then, oh my word. I can't even describe what's going on because it just all happens in 3 places at once.
I don't know if that started at the hairpin or what, because that was, all those cars checked up at the hairpin, so everyone bunched up, and then we had someone else spinning in front of them, and Constantine into the chicane. And
so that's simply
big
jumps across the curb, loses it, hits it into one of the Alpha Racing team cars, who stays out of the way. Now the Quintini train comes through. Look at Lee Partridge to either make contact or jump across the curb as he tries to get in too hot. No contact, that he gets sent out wide. Then in front of them, the lapped car spins. Ryan Jones jumps across the curb, somehow manages to avoid Quintini spinning. I think that summarizes everything that happened in our top 10 in the final lap. There's a slowdown there for jumping the curb, potentially. And the only way we can unravel all of this, I think, is to go to the results and read off the timing sheet, and that's going to tell us the story of the race. Cam Dance converting pole position to a win for the first time this season to try to put his championship defense back on track. Chaz Mostert, win in race 1, podium in race 2. That is a good haul of points for him that ought to make him the round winner, I would think. Joseph DeJesus on the podium once again. Michael Skurlock, a quiet one in 4th, I think, and he might be happy with that, to be honest. Ryan Jones from 30th on the grid, 25 positions gained in almost as many minutes to finish in the top 5. Not without chaos and carnage and excitement in the final lap, as we saw, because Lee Partridge jumped across the curb, somehow manages to still get 6th place. Ryan Howe in 7th, Daniel Hederscheid in 8th, Dennis Hancock in 9th. Big deep breath, the top 10 rounded out by Aaron Quintini.
11th place occupied by Matthew Quintini. Nice little form finish between the 2 cars there at the end. Ryan Simpson had his fair shares of battles, finishing P12. Max Donnelly, Nathan Verney, after his late pit stop, finishes 14th. Reese Gardner having a nightmare of a race by his standards, finishing 15th. Ray Oliver, Simon Clayson, Stuart Crawford, Sean Doyle, and Matthew Harriott rounding out the top 20.
All right, I'll bring us home here now. Kirk Broadhurst in 21st from Jeremy Bush, Ira Felberg, Vic Bent-Veltzen, Rick Berger, Callum Heinrich, and Leon Williams, the last car on the lead lap. That means Chris Noble must have towed on the final lap, and after battling for 5th, is going to get scored in 28th ahead of Paul Ward, Sean McKenzie, and the remainder of the field, Mick Taylor, Aaron Friend, Matthew Joy, and I'm going to say retirements then for Ash Knowles, Stephen Black, Philip Howe, and Theo Taylor in another action-packed OZICAR Formula Vee Series race. I never get to keep quiet, and we are never bored or short of action. So after all of that, let's get some interviews going. We got some drivers standing by from our podium across both of the races. Cam Dance, nowhere to be seen. So let's go to race 1 winner and race 2 podium sitter. Congratulations and welcome to the commentary box once again, Chaz Mostert.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, it's obviously a good day when you get to come to the commentary box. It doesn't happen a lot in the real world, so it's good that it's happening in the virtual world, I suppose.
Yeah, I get to say congratulations and not commiserations, so that probably means it was a good evening for you. But 45 minutes of racing looked like action throughout the field and battling to maybe take a year off your life.
Yeah, I forgot how intense it is at the front of the V field, you know, and definitely with these bigger tracks now, the slipstream's more effective. So, you can kind of be a little bit off the pace, but once you drop the toe, it's all over. So yeah, had a lot of fun tonight. It was good racing. Cam at the front again. I'm not sure what happened in that first race, if I stuffed him over or not, but definitely the second one, he obviously got that quick pit stop, and yeah, couldn't quite come out on his bumper, unfortunately.
National layout for this circuit, Barcelona, Catalunya. What do you think about that compared to the full Grand Prix layout for these cars? I thought it worked pretty well.
Yeah, well, the straight's obviously still super long for these cars. You know, if you look at Bathurst, for instance, when you've got a V around there, you can change the lead 4 times. So, you know, the straights are pretty long there. I reckon there was probably a good layout. I don't think it needs to be any longer. It's still got to be quite short, or the people that watching it on the screen will probably get bored when the lap times are over 2 minutes.
Well, we've never doubted you for pace or some racecraft in this V, but that second race with the pit stop, I think every race we've seen you in, you've gotten just a little bit closer to that optimal strategy. You're going to call in some help or spend some time with the notepad and pencil to work it out to try to clean sweep around here in OZICAR?
I think the pit stop for me is I just still trying to get used to the sim a little bit, and I undershot a lot to the line, and then I was a bit worried about going at the 80k speed limit as well, overshooting in the pit stop. So just a bit conservative, probably didn't do enough practice, but I only jumped back on the V yesterday for the first time, so it was good to still be on the pace. And come second to Cam, you know, he's obviously very quick in one of these, so we'll no doubt do some testing.
I love to hear that, and I hope we see you for plenty more rounds in this championship. There's some interesting liveries up and down the grid. Tell us about the moon rocket that you're piloting.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, really. I just found it on Trading Paints, and I thought that's a bit of me. And then actually for the first race, I forgot that livery was on. So yeah, I've just been running it since the first one, and I'll keep running. It seems to work to get podiums. So yeah, it's a bit of fun anyway.
Good on you. Congratulations. Good haul of points here as well, and you put on a good showing. Anyone you feel like you might want to thank while you've got the floor?
Sorry, I don't know what happened there, but yeah, I don't know what to thank, but I just thought, obviously, if anyone's watching back at home in Facebook land, anyone in lockdown or anything like that, just stay safe, and if you need any help or anything, just call those helplines, because there's a pretty tough time for everyone around the country at the moment.
It's all Queenslanders in the booth here, except for Jay Kennedy from down south. So we hear your message, and thank you very much.
Cheers, boys.
Here we go. One-time Bathurst 1000 winner, supercars driver. Not bad in a GT3 either. Chaz Mostert picks up some good points here today at Barcelona, but also picking up some good points in the feature race, and the defending series champion Cam Dance is with Brad Wingard.
Evening, Cam. Very hectic night for you tonight. Good results in both races. Any reason why you went for the medium strategy in race 2 rather than, well, I say the medium strategy, you were the second driver to pit in the top 3, but was that something you've practiced, or you just saw the Jesus go in and you thought, give me a couple laps and I'll do the same thing?
Well, I was just more or less watching the lap time to see what was going to be happening as far as who was going to do what, whether I needed to pit a little bit earlier and follow him through, or whether I just needed to keep on going. And the lap time was more or less the same, both in the draft and out of the draft, but I just decided to try and get a little bit cleaner and see what it would do with me and Chaz. I knew it was going to be close, but not as big of a gap as it ended up being.
Yeah, ended up working very much in your favor. That draft made for some very intense racing. How's your heart rate during that? Because I can't imagine it was very restful during those 45 minutes that we've just seen.
Yeah, race 1 was a little bit intense with what was going on. The fact I was battling further back in the pack and having to try and catch up to the guys in the front. But no, race 2 was pretty cruisy. Obviously, me, Chaz, and Joseph all really competent in knowing what we're doing at the end of the day with the draft and not being anything silly. So yeah, it was just pretty much all about being cruisy and not really pushing anything or trying too hard.
And I'm going to ask a very similar question that David asked. The Barcelona national layout is not used very often in a lot of racing that we see on TV and on sim. What are your thoughts on the racing that it produced tonight?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, obviously the longer straights and that sort of thing, and the flying nature of the track means it's going to be a little bit more of a draft fest rather than being more technical and allowing those who are naturally quick to have some form of advantage. But it's just one of those things about these sort of tracks, and it does also help those guys who are a little bit slower and are able to get a chance at winning races and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's really, really cool at the end of the day to see guys up the front and battling, but at the same time it's a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is.
Definitely did not leave us with many opportunity for a rest, that's for sure. Anyone you would like to thank tonight after your much better result than you've had in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, just first of all, shout out to the boys at TechSense Fitstyle Motorsport and our partners TechSense Sensors, Renville Harnesses, Demon Tweaks, Fight CRC, Majors Garage, Sim3D, you guys for the awesome broadcast, Ira for the awesome series, Chaz and Joseph and all the boys for the awesome racing, and yeah, see what we can do next week.
Awesome, we look forward to seeing you there. And finally, for the podium is Jesus with David Haynes, and it's good to see him on the podium tonight, so I'll let you take that away, David.
Yeah, and I'm picking up from the Discord and the social media nicknames. The pronunciation might be Jesus. So first of all, let's clear the air on this one. Congratulations on some good points and some great qualifying performances today. State your name.
Thanks. Joseph De Jesus IV. But, the Jesus is good too.
Well, so long as it's on our tongue, it means that you're doing well and performing well in the Formula V. How have you been enjoying this season?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Had a rough start for the first races last week, but I made sure to clean it up this time. So it was good racing with Cam and Chaz up the front.
Single lap qualifying for these cars, cold tyres, that kind of thing. How has that been a strength for you? Because we have seen you take out a couple of poles already this season.
Not really sure. I guess just being confident in yourself, just send it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Absolutely, fair enough. And another haul of points for you at Barcelona. Tell us about the strategy though, because you spend a lot of time in the slipstream with Chaz and Cam, and someone's got to be the first to blink on the pit lane. Was you today? I mean, is that going to be the same going forward? What's in your mind all throughout that time, knowing you're not going to be able to pull away from them, they're not going to be able to drop you with the slipstream, it's all going to come down to those pit stops?
Yeah, I just thought I'd try something different. Hitting halfway point, I think that's when I pit. I was pretty sure that new front tires would make it pretty slippery, especially if the rears were quite worn. So I was like, halfway point, I'll just pit, see how it goes. But unfortunately, didn't get the pit stops right, and yeah, lost quite a bit of time. So hopefully next time we'll do better.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a thrill to have you on the broadcast. You've really been up there, making everyone else work for it, poking around for some points, and hopefully you're in the mix come championship deciding time. Anyone you want to thank?
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to my boy Mikey and Chill Out Motorsports for getting me into this league. It's been super fun, so hopefully we can get some points all the way throughout the season.
Simple message. I like it. Go well next week.
Cheers, boys.
And that is going to be all from Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. We had maybe 3 hours of racing crammed into just 45 minutes, and all action every lap of both of those races. And they're going to do it all again next week at Silverstone National. Another sort of truncated Grand Prix venue. That is going to be oh so interesting, and the championship could swing any which way. We hope you're able to join us for that on SimSpeed TV. So make sure you're following us on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and all our other platforms there as well, so you catch OZICAR Formula V next week, OZICAR Skip Barber Series same time tomorrow night, and all the other things we broadcast here on SimSpeed TV. I've been David Haynes, it's been Brad Wingard with me, and OZICAR Formula V was brought to you by Simfinity, Locked On iRacing Podcast, Prestige Trophy Badge and Engraving, 24/7 Race Control. See you next week at Silverstone.
fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Six very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no, that's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?